continuation of conditions of ABC license. We have La Famosa in continuation of conditions on ABC license. No opposition to continuation of conditions for Platinum Lounge LLC. Trading as per Leanglo, continuation of conditions on ABC license. Number 4, no opposition to continuation of conditions for Tropical, trading as Tropicana, continuation of conditions of ABC license. We have ordinances for second reading. We have ordinance 061301, a bond ordinance amended and supplemented one ordinance number 012903, which provides for the construction of the Brunswick Landing Project, heretofore finally adopted by the City Council of the City of New Brunswick in the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, on December 16, 2009, to increase the appropriation therein to $1.9 million and to increase the authorization of funds or notes of the city to $1.9 million to finance part of the cost thereof. We have ordinance 061302, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the City of New Brunswick, Chapter 10, Vehicles and Traffic, to meter parking on Somerset Street alongside the View and Barnes & Noble storefronts, add limited parking zone on Somerset Street alongside the View and Barnes & Noble storefronts. Ordinance 061303, an ordinance to fix the salaries and wages for Firemen's Mutual Benevolent Association Local Number 17 for 2011 to 2014. Ordinance 061304, amend the management salary ordinance for 2012 to 2014. There's no ordinances on first reading. Resolutions. Resolution 061352 is approve agenda amendment. Resolution 353 approve payroll 5/25/2013 to 6/7/2013. Resolution 354 authorize refund for deemed tax sale certificates. Resolution 355 approve emergency temporary appropriations for 2013. Resolution 356 approve amendment of resolution 031 to 145. The reason to pay final invoices for 2012 with Global Electrical Mechanical Inc. The sanitary sewer pump station maintenance not to exceed $11,154.53. Resolution 357, approve a work contract with Quality Communication Systems Inc. for proprietary software maintenance and support contract for Police Department. The term is 12 months, beginning July 30th, 2013, and ending July 29th, 2014, not to exceed $12,927.20. Resolution 358, adopt bylaws for conflict of interest for New Brunswick Alliance. Resolution 359, approve, disapprove continuation of special conditions for 2013-2014 liquor license for the Gala Cafe and Restaurant, 156 Commercial Avenue. Resolution 360, approve, disapprove continuation of special conditions for 2013-2014 liquor license for La Famosa Inc., trading as La Famosa, 117 Benson Avenue. Resolution 361, no opposition to continuation of conditions, approve, disapprove, continuation of special conditions and renewal for 2013-2014 liquor license for Platinum Lounge LLC, trading as Berlet and Roy, 13 Patterson Street. Resolution 362, no opposition to continuation of conditions, approve, disapprove, continuation of special conditions and renewal for 2013-2014 liquor license for Tropical LLC, trading as Tropicana, 2 Georges Road. Resolution 363, approve award of contract with Language Line Services Inc. for translation services for the Police Department. The term is 12 months, starting on June 20th, 2013, and ending on June 19th, 2014, not to exceed $50,000, and this is for an open. Resolution 264, approved purchase by Police Department under state contract number A77003 from Dell Marketing LP for software license, possible limited workstation school module, not to exceed $14,149.47. This is a state contract. Resolution 364, approve award of contract with Metashan Center, Inc. for furnish and deliver of sporting goods for Division of Recreation and Youth Services System. The term is 12 months, starting June 21st, 2013, and ending on June 20th, 2014, not to exceed $34,882.80. Resolution 366, approve amendment of Resolution 0401-349. The reason is to add a fundraising bicycle ride to support the foundation. Approve request for use of city property, requested by Embrace Kids Foundation. The location is Biglow Park Pavilion. The bike route is from Biglow Park to ride on Polish Avenue to ride on Hamilton Street. This is for a bicycle tour pickup event on Sunday, July 28, 2013, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Police extra duty required. Resolution 367, approve request for use of city property, the sidewalks only. This was requested by Goya, galvanizing and organizing youth activism at Rutgers. The location is Google Park and sidewalks only for the 12th annual Walk for Literacy on Saturday, October 12, 2013, from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. Resolution 368, approve request for use of city property requested by Ms. Quiñones. Location is Google Park Pavilion. For further celebration will be the request on Saturday, June 29, 2013, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Resolution 369, approve request for use of city property. This was requested by Church of Our Lord Jesus Christ. The location is Crystal Park for a church revival on September 4, 5th, 6th, and 7th. The time is from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Resolution 370 is resolution approve request for use of city property, sidewalks, and park. Requested by Lazos America United. Location is Biglow Park Pavilion and sidewalks only for Native American gathering on Sunday, June 30th, 2013. The sidewalk time is 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and the park time is 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Resolution 371, approve request for use of city property is requested by New Brunswick Cultural Center. The location is Boyd Park for the second annual of City Sounds Music and Concert Series. The days and times are Saturdays, August 10, 2013, and September 7, 2013, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Dates and times on Sundays is August 11, 2013, from 11 a.m. to 4, and September 8, 2013, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Police extra duty required. Resolution 372, approve award of contract with George Dapper Inc. The amount is $22,254.90. With Urban Raphael Inc., the amount is $8,862 for bus transportation for 2013 summer fun programs. Resolution 373, resolution expressing the need for supported housing project proposed by Town Club, CDC, Bergen County United Way, Madeline Corporation Partnership. This is at 9 Bayer Street in the city of New Brunswick. Resolution 374, approve appointment of council, Mayor Lawrence Biederman, representation of Officer Daniel Massan in the matter of the city of Angelo versus the city of New Brunswick. Resolution 375, approve ABC license renewals for 2013-2014. Resolution 376, approve amendment to Resolution 011301, 2013 City Council Annual Meeting Schedule. Resolution 377, approve award of contract with Chef and Gourmet doing business as Maximum Quality Food for furnish and deliver of food products for the Senior Citizens Resource Center. The term is at 12 months from June 20th, 2013, and ending on June 19th, 2014, not to exceed $22,000. Resolution 378, approve off-premise raffle merchandise at 94 Somerset Street for St. Peter's the Apostle RC Church on November 16, 2013. Resolution 379, approve off-premise raffle 50/50 at 94 Somerset Street for St. Peter's the Apostle RC Church on November 16, 2013. Resolution 380, approve off-premise raffle gifts at 94 Somerset Street for St. Peter's the Apostle RC Church on November 16, 2013. Resolution 381, approve person-to-person transfer of liquor license, Lease a Pocket license from State and Ale of New Jersey, Inc., care of Michelle Shaw, Chapter 7 Bankruptcy Trustee, to the Brunswick Investment Group, LLC. Resolution 382 is being held at the request of the City Administrator. Resolution 383 is being held at the request of the City Administrator. Resolution 384, authorized payment for emergency procurement engineering department. This is for move, bridge, and setback in place for Boyd Park with sky-high erectors and equipment not to exceed $11,980. Resolution 385, approve off-premise raffle at Hyatt Regency Hotel 2 Albany Street for the Diocese of Metuchen on October 24, 2013. Resolution 386, approve request for solicitation of funds requested by Rutgers University Habitat for Humanity Campus Chapter for Habitat for Humanity. The dates and times are June 22, 2013 from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., June 23, 2013 from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and June 27, 2013 from 3 p.m. to 6. The locations are corner of Albany and George Streets. Resolution 387, approve request for holding Lemonade Day on Saturday, June 22, 2013. Resolution 388, authorize joint application, execution, and acceptance of grants for 2013 to 3 other Harrison County municipalities. New Jersey Department of Justice for the Edward Warren Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. Resolution 389, approve renewal for 2013-2014 liquor license for Persev Inc., trading as Vivienda Bar, 14 Jersey Avenue. And we have one item for discussion by the council. And that, I think we should review part agenda. The meeting is full to order.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Council Vice President Egan.
Here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Here.
Council President Escobar.
Here. Please be advised that the notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act has been complied with and satisfied in that the annual notice, which gives sufficient notice of the time and place and conduct of all public meetings of the Municipal Council of the City of New Brunswick, has been filed with the City Clerk, has been placed on an appropriate bulletin board in the lobby of City Hall, New Brunswick, New Jersey, and has been transmitted to the official newspaper for the City of New Brunswick, namely the Home News Tribune.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please let's just take a moment to honor those Americans and Afghans who lost their lives, who have lost their lives in the war in Afghanistan. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to take a motion to accept the minutes of June 5th.
Second. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. At this time, we have a few items on the public hearings. So we're going to ask the Gala Cafe, Mr. Housen.
Mr. Chairman, you'll be handling this, Madam President. Madam Council President, members of the council, tonight we have the public hearing on the renewal of the liquor license for the Gala Cafe and Restaurant located at 156 Commercial Avenue. It's my understanding that after proper notice having been given, the licensee is present with counsel, Mr. Gussis, who's representing the Gala Cafe and Restaurant. It's also my understanding that there's members from the public here who wish to be heard regarding the council's consideration of this license. One thing I will note, my understanding from the city clerk that the license is not prepared to be renewed as of yet due to a tax clearance issue that they're waiting on from the state. But tonight's hearing is for consideration of any special conditions that the council may find appropriate to impose on the renewal of the license at the time of renewal. So whatever action is taken tonight will not actually be a renewal license, but a resolution memorializing that action relative to special conditions that the council will take at the time of renewal, which will happen at a subsequent meeting. Detective DeBonis is here. Perhaps the best way to proceed is just to have him give a brief overview of the current conditions. Well, I'll read the current conditions as imposed by the City Council at the time of last renewal. But perhaps he could then give us a thumbnail sketch as to the current environment in and about the licensed premises as it appears and is active today. With respect to the special conditions that were imposed at the time of renewal for the 2012-13 license year, condition number 1 required that the licensee employ extra duty New Brunswick police officers in accordance with ordinance 0-109903 as amended, specifically between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2:30 a.m. on all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings for the purpose of maintaining order in and about the licensed premises. Condition number 2 was that all live and recorded music be turned off no later than 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday evenings and 11 p.m. on Sunday evenings. Now, at the time of renewal the last time around, the council chose to suspend, and just to give a brief history for those who weren't here from the public, the history being that the council chose to suspend the cessation of live and recorded music at 1 a.m. on Saturday and 11 p.m. on Sunday evenings until it was further reviewed by the council. That review took place in March of this year, and at that time, as a result of the hearing that was held before this council, the council decided to reimpose the special conditions that were placed at the time of renewal. I will report to the council as well as to the public, and for those who aren't aware, I know the council is aware, as a result of an appeal from that action the council filed on behalf of licensee by Mr. Gussis, the director of the ABC elected to stay the reimposition of those special conditions. Obviously, the special conditions that are placed upon this license, well, with respect to both the cessation on Saturday and Sunday evenings. But what happens with respect to this renewal is that we're operating from a clean slate, so to speak. So any special conditions that the council may impose at the time of renewal, extending into the 2013-14 license year, therefore would be subject to any appeal that the licensee may want to pursue at that time. And obviously, if the licensee is so inclined, could also seek to have those special conditions stayed pending a hearing before the director of the ABC. So having said that, unless the council has any questions, I'd like to turn it over to Detective DeBonis just for a brief summary of as to the conditions.
I just wanted, before Detective DeBonis does that, I just want to make everybody aware that tonight we're introducing a new way of the public addressing the council, and everybody, we have a microphone in the corner, so if you wish to address the council when it's the time for the public to address, or anybody, please move forward to the microphone. You can make a line, and then you will have the time, and then we continue moving forward. We're trying to find ways to better service you and better hear you and understand and the timing, so everybody gets a chance to be able to speak to the council.
Very good. Detective Michael DeBonis, New Brunswick Police Department. Every year, the police department puts together a cavern report from April 1st, 2012, this particular year, to March 31st, 2013. We put together the calls for service for every licensed establishment within the city of New Brunswick. Some of these calls for service might not be directly related to the establishment, but may be in the close proximity of the establishment. That being said, the Gala Cafe is 156 Commercial Avenue. There were 97 calls for service during that time frame at the gala. 26 were for disturbances or disorderly persons. 53 were noise complaints. That is up until March 31st, 2013. From April 1st, 2013 to the present day, there were 20 calls for service, 13 noise complaints, and 5 disorderly persons complaints. Through the year, the Second Ward Block Club has notified the police department through the council and through our crime watch that there has been quality of life issues in the area. They've been very vocal about these quality of life issues. You may hear of some of them, those issues today. I've spoken with some of these individuals by themselves and collectively, and I've also received correspondence from them complaining about certain issues at the Gala Cafe. We're trying to have our officers take a more proactive approach at the Gala Cafe. There's been some complaints over the past 3 or 4 months specifically about addressing more aggressively the quality of life issues. I believe we've accomplished that. We're trying to put the appropriate officers out of their car, taking a more proactive stance to address the quality of life issues in that area. And that's pretty much it at this point. There has been documentation passed on the officers who work the establishment. Some of the incidents that might take place at the establishment don't necessarily generate a case number. There may be disorderly persons who are cleared. There may be loud people yelling, cursing, talking loudly by a vehicle that are asked to move along. There may be 5, 10, 15, 25 people exiting the establishment at the same time, where the officer would proactively move those individuals along. We're trying to also police the area behind the establishment. Like I said earlier, we're trying to take a more proactive approach.
Okay, any questions for the
Lieutenant Brunswick, do you notice any specific more time frame of complaints? 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12, 1, 2?
A lot of the complaints are in the wee hours of the morning, past midnight. Some of them Sunday night into Monday, of course Friday night into Saturday, and Saturday into Sunday. It seems to stem from, a lot of the complaints stem from when the music is turned off. If the music's turned off at 1 o'clock, a lot of the people exit the establishment at any given time because the music is turned off at that particular time. They would exit, so therefore you might have 50, 75, 80 people exiting at once. So therefore we might receive a lot of complaints at that time. When the music restrictions on Sunday night were 11 o'clock, our police officer there was proactively pursuing, addressing the quality of life issues in the area a little after 11, because when the music was turned off, a lot of the people fill into the streets, so we have to move those people along.
So it is your opinion then that the complaints, noise complaints, is just of the patrons coming out of the establishment? It's not from the music coming from the establishment? Or?
Both. Some of the noise complaints have not been substantiated by the officer on site, but that doesn't mean that someone who was visiting the establishment may have caused that issue, honking horn, walking down the street. Then again, they may have not. Some of the noise complaints have been substantiated. The officers have asked the establishment to lower the music. So that goes both ways.
Is there, did you see any correlation between like the warmer months as it gets warmer out? You know, like during the winter months, do the complaints go down? Like say that there was restrictions, you know, maybe as, you know, a certain time of year, you know, during when it gets warmer out, was there a correlation? Did they go higher or lower or anything?
I didn't specifically address it as per the time of the year, as per the weather. However, as being a police officer, I do know that weather is one of the best crime fighters. When it's cold out, people tend not to hang out outside, not to congregate, not to be disorderly because it's cold. The warmer months, people will be hanging out longer, hanging out by their cars and such.
Any questions for the council member?
Madam Council President, at this time, perhaps we can hear from Mr. Gussis if he wants to make any comments about this particular renewal hearing, or he could defer and hear from members of the public and then comment later. It's entirely up to Mr. Gussis.
I would like to comment on each of the witnesses as they speak, and I'm happy to do it now for Ms. Woodhull.
So would you like to wait for it, or you just?
So I'd rather comment on the CAB report. The CAB report is compiled by calls.
Mr. Gus, I'm sorry. From the
The
record,
CAB
so we
report,
will hear.
okay, the CAB report is compiled by calls to the dispatcher. The only issue that this licensee has is the hours, not the officer who's there and for which service my client pays. So if you look at the CAD report that he testified from, you will see that there are calls that are generated, and they're never coordinated with the officer that my client is paying to be there to see if they're substantiated. So I took his CAD report from the time of the last hearing. I listened to your whole presentation here, and I correlated the reports. There were only 10 reports that were actually issued from there until I got about 11 of them today for the period after your last hearing. And I can tell you that the noise, the restrictions on the hours have to do with noise. And very few of the complaints, he can talk about 100, he can talk about 200, but if there's 10 complaints involving noise, it's a lot. Now, one of the most vocal people who calls, I had my, if you look at the CAD report, they even tell who called a lot of them. And a lot of them are done by one neighbor on the opposite corner, that's Mr. Parker. I don't know whether he's here today, but I can tell you that he lives right there. He could go to the police officer in front of the tavern and say, hey, they're making noise, stop them. And there was nothing in your last hearing, and there's nothing in this report that indicates that he went to the officer on duty. So frankly, I don't know why we have that restriction on our license that we have to provide an officer if the police department and the dispatch people do not coordinate with the officer in front of the tavern. That's what he's there for. Now, the last 7 or 8 reports that we had, they don't say there was maybe 2 of them that had to do with noise, but there was some disorderly conduct there. But the time restrictions are not because of the disorderly conduct. The police officer is there because of disorderly conduct. And that's what we're paying for, in addition to paying property taxes on the place. Now, I was also handed tonight from the 2nd Ward Crime Watch a letter. I want you to know that after I filed the appeal, and I have a copy, but I have a copy for all of you, I wrote to the Crime Watch and I told them we were willing to meet with them to discuss any legitimate complaints. We're interested in resolving quality of life, not just with Degala, but that whole strip that they think is only for 1 and 2 family houses. Now, I'm sure you all go past Commercial Avenue at that point at least once a week, and you know that it's not just 1 and 2 family houses. It's really, in many areas, it's a blighted area. I want you to know that Crime Watch presented a letter to you tonight, which I never got until Mr. Shabby gave it to me, and I can tell you that they never answered my letter for May 23rd. So as far as I'm concerned, when you pledge allegiance to the flag and you say we're liberty and justice for all, then they have done Mr. Rodriguez an injustice. And that's what I'm here for today, to see to it that he gets his justice and that you coordinate the CAD report to the actual incidents. And believe me, there are very few. Anyone can call and say, hey, we're by Degala. A lot of them were thefts inside the premises, but they don't generate noise. So I want you to give careful consideration to the time, because that's really what we're here about. We're not here about anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody from the public wishes to address the council on this matter? And if you wish to, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Before they do that, can I give you the letter so that you have it, the one that I wrote here?
Hello. Hi. My name is Bailey Sosa. I live at 154 Commercial Avenue, the apartment adjacent to Will Barker's. And it's also directly across the street from Degala. As far as any comments that I have, I just want to say the recent activity that the New Brunswick Police really has put out on the street corner has done massive good. Whatever happens in the future, I just hope that that similar action really takes place. In terms of the restrictions, I've noticed that quality of life on our block in our neighborhood is much greater when those restrictions are in place. When you have people coming out on the street making a lot of noise, not to mention the extremely loud music from the inside, 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday night is very different from 11 o'clock. I don't think anybody here is going to say to you, we want to shut it down. It's just that those 3 hours make a tremendous amount of difference in our life. In terms of what happens to our block, trash, noise, people loitering outside my door. I'm not trying to exaggerate when my fiance and I say, I don't think I'm gonna walk the dog tonight, you know, can you do it? So I really don't feel safe Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. But like I said, when the police are there having an active presence, I feel a lot better. And I just wanted to maybe say that the attorney mentioned briefly the police officer who's out in front, paid by the owner of the gala. And I feel that that police officer isn't really somebody I feel comfortable approaching. I don't think that, you know, people in the community feel comfortable approaching him because it just sort of seems like he's very much on the side of the gala. So that's my only comment.
Thank you.
My name is Noah Aberschmidt, I live at 154 Commercial Avenue, apartment 2. I really just want to stress that, again, just like the previous speaker said, that the conditions when they were reinstated that were on the license that had been laxed, they made a world of difference. And again, I don't think anybody's really here to oppose this business or to say that it needs to be shut down or anything like that. It's merely that we would really hope that some conditions are made in place. The ones that are, again, the most sort of detrimental to the quality of life issues primarily consist of the fact that it remains open with loud music occurring from inside the establishment, both from the level of the actual music as well as the bass that is clearly audible and very loud, and that this occurs up to 2 o'clock in the morning on Monday. Also in the past, prior to the conditions being reinstated, this would also occur on 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday morning. Now, you get up very early to go to work, and I'm not asking for severe limitations on the operation of this business on a Friday or a Saturday night by any means. All we're requesting is that it act like a business that is in a residential neighborhood. I understand the depiction of the area as being a blighted neighborhood, but it's not a wasteland. It's a very vibrant residential community. And I would just ask that the City Council consider the good that the conditions that were previously in place and reinstated in March, that they be continued in operation. Thank you.
May I address that witness?
Sure.
I just want to tell you that the city of New Brunswick has a noise ordinance. I have copies for you, because I can tell you the city of New Brunswick does not follow it. And it tells you that when somebody complains, how the noise levels are measured. There's no noise control officer, there's no trained police officers, and it defines what it is, and it gives you the decibel levels. So everyone can stand up here. Most of the comments on the noise have to do with people out. It does not have to do with turning off the music. So if the music is turned off at 11 o'clock, or 11:30 or 12 o'clock, the same people are going to be going out of the place making noise. That's what the officer is there for. It has nothing to do with the turn off of the music. So I think that you all should familiarize yourself with your ordinance. So I made your copies of it.
Thank you. Next, name and address, please.
Sure. William Barker, 154 Commercial Avenue, and I'll just comment on Mr. Gus's comment. Every single person who's spoken has mentioned that they can hear the bass from the gala inside their home. We're not talking about in the street. We're not talking about by walking up to the gala. We're talking with our windows closed, trying to go to bed. That's not why we pay taxes, not why people pay rent. They pay rent for quiet enjoyment of their home. This is a business. They have a right to run a business, but they do not have the right to push the sound of their means of production into our home. Every single person has mentioned that, so it's not simply the noise made by the patrons outside. That being said, we've measured the noise from the overall impact of the gala, and it creates, at 2 in the morning, it is close to 3 times the noise level of what the gala, without the gala. So if we measure it on Monday night, we end up with somewhere around 48 decibels. If we measure it on Sunday night at the exact same time, for a good solid hour, we're up in the mid-50s. So we're like 8 to 10 decibels higher. That's more than double the noise level. And I think when you talk about the impact that a business has in the neighborhood, you have to look at the parking, which we have no parking when the gala's open. They have something like 16 spaces behind the gala. If you look at a Google Map view of it. Every single parking space in our neighborhood is taken by their people. And they park right up to the corner, within 5 feet of the corner, and we've asked that Mike DeBonis, we've asked that the police aggressively ticket people that are parked illegally, because in our neighborhood, I've been ticketed for parking. As a matter of fact, just after restrictions were put in, and City Council mentioned to Mr. DeBonis that there should be better enforcement, I was ticketed for parking. I was probably about 35 feet from the corner, but I was ticketed and I paid that ticket. And just out of fairness, I think that everybody who parks 5, 10, 15, 20 feet from the corner, which happens every single night, you can look at it and see every single corner, all around the four corners right near the Gala. It's like the Wild West, there are no laws. And like I said, we don't get quiet enjoyment in our home. We spoke to a neighbor of ours. We became friendly with. She's at 135 Commercial Avenue. Her name is Diana Rosas, and she was unable, to make it tonight. So I'm going to read her letter. It's very short. Dear New Brunswick City Council.
I would object to reading anyone's letter other than somebody who's here.
I can hand you a copy of it.
Let's have a copy.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. I guess I'll keep the original. Anyways, I just want to also agree that it's very important that we have the restrictions in effect. Currently, the director of the ABC has stated the conditions the City Council put in, so there is no local control here. He has superseded, he didn't hold a hearing, he didn't ask for anyone's input, he didn't call the police department to see if it was in fact the most complained about bar in New Brunswick. I guess last year it was 83 calls for service, now it's 95 calls for service. And there is no other establishment in New Brunswick that comes close. So we'd like the City of New Brunswick to continue and to try and be aggressive about getting our quality of life in our neighborhood back.
I have a question I have to ask you. You go out and you go to the cop that's in front of the place, or do you call the police department for service?
We do both. We have spoken, and if Mr. Gussis would look at the transcripts of every single City Council meeting,
Thank you.
if he'd listen and look at the transcripts, every single City Council meeting, myself, Lyra, who lives with me, we have all gone out and tried to speak to the officer who's usually there is Bill. And Bill has told us right to our faces that his job is not to deal with noise complaints, not to deal with quality of life. Now, since the last City Council meeting, I'm sure he would no longer say that to our faces. But you've got to understand that our trust in him, after years of him saying to us, it's none of my, I'm not going to deal with noise complaints, I'm not going to deal with quality of life issues. We are a little skeptical of Bill. In addition to that, when the original case was put before the ABC, and the city, Bill and TK put together a case and put the restrictions together to begin with on the Gala, Bill witnessed, Bill, the police officer who sits in front of the Gala the majority of the time, who's paid by the Gala, witnessed on behalf of the Gala. So our lack of trust for him is kind of valid. Thank you very much.
If I could address his comments.
Yes, Mr. Gus, just if you could use the microphone, please, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
First of all, I want to address the parking thing. Mr. Parker owns 2 houses on Commercial Avenue next to each other, except that they're divided by a strip. The 7-foot strip is owned by the City of New Brunswick. So he uses it for a parking lot. If you look at the letters that I sent to Ms. Colorado from the second floor, I put a picture of his 2 houses in the 7-foot strip. So he has parking because he parks on the city property and uses it as a dump. So he's concerned. I showed you his property. He's now the subject of summonses in the municipal court, which I brought to the city's attention because he's worried about the quality of life. And so the crime watch should be worried about the quality of life in the whole place. But we're really here about the noise. That's what I told you. And the noise that you're here about is shutting off the music, and what does that accomplish? Now, you have an officer. We didn't pick the officer. We only pay him. So now we suffer because they're unhappy with the officer. The officer's been there, and now what I did is I put the officers, I took your CAD report, and I put the officers who were there when on the CAD report that I was given, so you can see who it is. So if they're unhappy, did they complain to the police department? Did they say, send someone else? We're not comfortable with him? They didn't do that. but my guy pays $600 a night, and they want him to suffer more for it because now they want his music turned off. And they haven't demonstrated that it's the music that creates their problem. The disorderly conduct is outside. That's what the officer is for. And we are not asking to be relieved of that restriction.
And I just want to add, Mr. Johnson, that when they, in the past, they have brought up the officer sitting in the car, and I have stated in the past that I have been a witness of the officer sitting in the car, that I feel that he should have a more active role. So I'm happy that now it's, you know, as
We would be delighted, but
saying,
if you look at the letter I sent to the Crime Watch, I invited them to talk to us. If they said they were unhappy with him, we could have had a meeting with Director Caputo to resolve that. But instead, they want to punish him by turning off the sound. Now, Mr. Barker's comments about the sound and the decibel level, obviously he didn't know about the noise ordinance. The forum for that is the municipal court. It's not here. So if he has an issue and he can tell what the decibel levels are, he should have them file a complaint in municipal court. We'll have the hearing there. But that has nothing to do with the proofs that are before you, because that is not a proof. His allegation of this is not a proof. And you can see his quality of life and how he maintains his property. Mr. Rodriguez has the unfortunate situation of owning the property behind his two properties. So he has to look at his garbage in his property too. And he's worried about his quality of life. He doesn't care about anyone else's.
anybody else from the public wishes to address the council on this matter? Anybody else, please?
Lyra Scandari, 154 Commercial Avenue. First of all, I just want to make a quick distinction between the quality of life of an eyesore infringing upon your life versus double the decibel level between 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm out enjoying my garden, saying hi to my neighbors, sitting out with my neighbors in my yard, versus trying to go to bed, get ready for class or work, and having the noise literally penetrating my closed windows, which I would love to open when there's a nice, cool summer breeze, but I cannot. So when I'm trapped in my apartment with no air circulation because I can't open the windows, and with the windows closed, the base of the establishment is literally shaking my walls. I mean, I don't think you can really argue that you'd have to walk through somebody's yard to see what the things that he's talking about in terms of whatever might be disheveled in the yard. That isn't going to infringe upon your work schedule, your study schedule, your quality of life. Second, I can't speak to parking. I ride a bicycle, which I just rode from the train station here. I commute into New York at least 3 times a week. I have to wake up early in order to do that. My commute is 2 hours one way. So for me to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning, that puts a huge burden on me. I mean, that means at least 1 hour less of sleep that I've calculated into my schedule. I would also like to mention that we are talking about the noise. So maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I thought I heard a contradiction there because this gentleman pointed out that we're talking about the noise, yet this is not the venue for that. So if we're going to be talking about the noise, then let's talk about the noise. The noise is a major issue. Yes, it's patrons outside, which is, a separate issue, and there's different ways to address that. But for me, my major concern is the one thing that we can do something about most easily, which is the noise coming from the establishment. We've been here previously, and I've given you evidence of the way that the club is promoted, and it is promoted as a nightclub. If you had looked back at some of the flyers, I'm sorry I don't have copies with me this time, some of the flyers that I gave you copies of, at least one of them does have a cover charge on the flyer. So that indicates that they are operating as a nightclub. And if anyone in this room has been to a nightclub on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night, they understand that in order for people to continue coming there at that volume, to take up the kind of space that we're talking about in terms of parking or whoever's on the street, in order to draw that kind of volume into your establishment, you have to have a legitimate sound system. Let's not kid ourselves, this is not a restaurant. This is not where you bring your family until 1 o'clock at night to enjoy drinks, discussing things, or having a good time. You're going there to dance, there's a dance floor, it's dark, there's a DJ, it's promoted. Let's not kid ourselves. We're talking about a club, a nightclub, in a residential area. We want to talk about a bar, restaurant, tavern, which it's supposed to be. Then we can talk about the way that the zoning is established in that area, but we're talking about a nightclub. And third, I'd like to say that I would never want to speak for someone else's behalf, but I will mention that we are friendly with our neighbors. This is a family environment. This is a family community. There are a lot of kids on either direction of our building, and not all of them can come to these meetings. I mean, it was difficult for me. I was, sitting there tapping my feet, waiting for this train to arrive and riding my bike over here, so I had to make great efforts to make it here to this meeting on time. But not everybody has that leisure or flexibility in their schedule. So please do not assume for the slightest minute that the people here speaking on behalf of the community and ourselves are the only people who this establishment disrupts. There are other people who work long hours, supporting a family who don't have a flexible enough schedule to make it here today. So I really appreciate if we can remember why we're here and the community that we really would like to have in New Brunswick, and let's be serious about what kind of establishment this is and where. Thank you.
I just want to say, to be fair, in the previous meeting that we had that we were discussing this, there was also a big majority of the community who live in that area that were supporting the establishment, so we have to be fair.
Sure, absolutely. I mean,
so we're not assuming that you're the only ones. We have heard from both sides.
If I had the financial incentive to go out and execute a campaign knocking on people's doors and trying to get them here,
then assuming that.
I'm not making assumptions, but if hypothetically I had that time and that incentive, then perhaps there would be more people, but right now there aren't, and I'm just saying that that doesn't necessarily prove that there aren't more people that would be here if they could.
And I understand, I just want you to be also fair, that we have heard from the other side that it's the same situation.
Nobody's
So
saying that we have or can quantify, the numbers, but even the numbers don't necessarily mean one thing or another. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to address, I see that some of you have a flyer. Was given one tonight. Contrary to what it says that the entrance is free. Now, the council knows that on every license, there is a floor plan. And I'm sure if you look at the floor plan for this, you'll see the tables. If no one so far has said they've been in there to say that there's no food being served, that it's really a bar and a nightclub, I would say that Mrs. Pellerano even omitted that from her last letter, although she put this letter that you've got today. In her previous one, she said it. In my letter to her, I asked her, what was the basis for her saying that? I mean, they could investigate it and say there's a zoning violation. We haven't been charged with the zoning violation. So I don't know why she's saying that. I don't know why she would say that there's a cover charge to get into the place. There's tables, there's food. If you look at the back, you'll see that they even offer lunches there for 99 cents to encourage people. Then no one's even said that all the people that are parked illegally are patrons of this tavern. But they have to suffer because there's no parking in the neighborhood. I mean, everyone's not fortunate enough to have a parking deck built next to them like we have in the downtown section. It's not there. French Street is the same way. College Avenue is the same way. In fact, the parking authority just sold the parking lot on Eastern Avenue. There's nothing there. People have to do with what's there. And if you look at the Gala's property, it's the best maintained property on Commercial Avenue, bar none. You can go look at it, make your own observations. He's proud of what he did. He's been there for almost 20 years. So look at it and see. He's managed to survive. Not too many neighborhoods have places that are non-conforming uses that have survived.
Hello, my name is Regina Talara. I live in 64 Commercial. I'm sorry, I'm kind of sick. Well, I have a 4-year-old son. I went to the gala in the afternoon with my son. We had a good time. I've been there with my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather. It's a very nice place. I can't complain about the gala for the simple reason that in the night I sleep very well. My son, he sleeps all night. I wake up every single day at 6 o'clock in the morning because I gotta take him to school. I can't complain. I'm not talking, I know they could say whatever they want because that's their opinion, but I'm talking for myself. And what can I say? I had a good time over there, like I said, with my son. It's a very family place. You could go with your son, your kids, your entire family, and you're gonna have a good time. On the parking, I always find parking. So on the Saturdays and Sunday, I usually go and spend the day with my mother. She don't live with me. And when I come back, like around 9, 10 sometimes, I always find parking in the street. And, that's my opinion. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, excuse me, your address again?
64.
64?
Yeah, in the back.
In the back, okay, 64. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello,
Name and address, please?
my address is 139 Commercial Avenue, I'm sorry, close to the street from the gala. I live with that for 7 years. I never had complaints, nobody bothered me. That music, people close the door, I can't hear the music. I live close to the street from gala. He knows my friend over there is that guy. He's coming 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, he got big party. If we would drop here, DJ somewhere, he got a lot of boxes, drop on the ground. Sometimes I stay in the bedroom, 3 o'clock, I jump that thing. He got a lot of big party. I parking over there all the time, and they will have trouble with the party. He asked me to ask the people there on time. I said, listen, nobody bothered me. Okay? I don't have any complaint for nobody. I got a complaint for you. For your 4 trucks, we have big boxes. You got it still, put boom, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning.
What truck?
He got 4 trucks.
Okay.
Parking out there.
No.
Every week, sometimes 4 days in a week, sometimes 3 days. Over Sunday, Saturday, Friday, all the time. After that, what I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, my name is Nelson Gilman. My address 145 Commercial Avenue. I live right across the street from the bar, right? And I don't have a lot of noise and thing at night. I live right across the street there. And I've been there for back in the 60s, I've been living there. And I always go there to buy food and stuff for, I never had a lot of noise at night.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishes to address the council or raise a specific, just, we need to know somebody told you. You could be this.
Again, Bailey, 154. I don't have anything long to say. I don't have anything very long to say. I think it's great that people who live so close to the bar don't have any issue. But as somebody who lives right next to it, how many people does it take to matter whether or not your life is being, disrupted? If 100 people's lives are not disrupted, that's great. But when 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, their lives are disrupted, that matters too. And I think that, based on the kind of conversation we're having about the kind of restrictions we're asking for, Sunday night at a reasonable hour, I think the fact that there are so many people here willing to honestly speak about how their lives are affected, then, we deserve to be heard just as much as anybody else who's not.
Yes, my name is Rodriguez. I'm the owner of the Gala Cafe. I'm just concerned, right? Just Mr. Berkeley, he's a sound guy. He got a legal studio in his house. That's why maybe you can hear the bass when he played the music and the recording studio in his house. That's what you hear the bass in his house, boom, 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 because he got a legal studio. I got the pictures. The guy talking about his truck, he be doing sound all over the town, all over, the city, out of the city. That's why he got the big truck, unloaded all equipment, big equipment. That's why maybe you can hear it, because he got a studio, recording studio, illegal, in his house. That's what I have to say.
Anybody else before we
I'm just going to address that. I don't have a recording studio. I don't have anything that creates any noise. I have zero noise complaints, unlike the Gala that has many. What I do is I run a small, privately owned sound company. There's no signage on the street. I've consulted with the city. It's run legally. And what we do is we run sound for events. We run sound for the city of New Brunswick, the tree lighting. We run sound for concerts on Governor's Island in New York. But we don't run sound in places where it's a residential neighborhood or it disturbs others. Thank you.
I do want to comment on one thing. I'm just saying it's a residential neighborhood. In the handout that I gave you with my letter to the Second Ward Crime Watch is his ad for a bicycle repair place at his house, where he stood up at that last meeting and said to me, this is a residential neighborhood, 1 and 2 family houses. Meanwhile, he had bike parts strewn all over his backyard, and he was actually advertising, you pay $20 for membership, it's called the Bicycle Library, and they can teach you how to repair bikes. That's the hypocrisy of it all. So when I say justice for all, Mr. Rodriguez should get justice. So we ask you to leave the hours the way they are, not with the restriction.
Okay, anybody else with that? Anybody? Yes, sir. Move to the mic, please, and name and address, please.
My name is Peter Montague. I live at 153 Nickel Avenue, and I'm a member of the Second Ward Crime Watch. In order to understand the problem, you have to go back 10 years, 15 years, and recognize that we used to have family restaurants in the Second Ward, and they're welcome. Who would discourage a family restaurant in the neighborhoods, in the residential neighborhoods? But the character of the establishments has changed, and you can see it in this series of images, which are from the Facebook page of the Gala. You can go on the web and look at these yourself. And they show you the nature of the place. It's aggressively promoting the consumption of alcohol, and it's aggressively promoting loud music. In the lower picture, that's a speaker hanging from the ceiling. What kind of family restaurant has this kind of advertising? What kind of family restaurant needs a police officer on site to keep order? What kind of a family restaurant has 97 calls for service to the police department? There's undoubtedly a place in New Brunswick where establishments like this could do well. But a residential neighborhood, zone residential, is not the place. And either the nature of the business needs to be toned down a bit, or they need to acknowledge that they don't really fit into a residential neighborhood, and they should move. Lastly, why is there a difference between the restrictions on the Tropicana and the restrictions on the Gala? First of all, it was our understanding that the Tropicana was supposed to turn off its music at midnight every night, not just Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but perhaps the legal staff here could clarify it. And secondly, why is there a dual standard for the Tropicana and the Gala? If the Tropicana can do well with the restrictions that they've got, and they must be able to because they're not fighting those restrictions, why would we have more lax restrictions on a place that is very similar in the kind of business that it does? It's a family restaurant that's also a nightclub, and it is not zoned for that. And please please put restrictions on it equivalent to those of the Tropicana at the least. And then please really get serious about asking yourself, what is a nightclub and where do they belong in New Brunswick? Surely there's a place in New Brunswick for nightclubs, but a residential neighborhood is not the place. Thank you very much.
Raymond Johnson, 11 Sanford. I really just want to reinforce much of what you heard already. I know what it's like to be in my bed at late at night and hearing the thump, thump, thump of the bass of speakers coming from local establishments. I've lived in this ward for over 20 years, and I'd like to keep it a residential neighborhood, not have a flight of homeowners and tenants leave because they're just tired of the lack of quality of life coming from this type of establishment. We have zoning in our set from the city council over the years, and I think they're not subject to those restrictions that are already in place. It's a residential commercial, and that's not a restaurant anymore. It's clearly a nightclub. And I would like that enforced all throughout our ward. And also I feel that there's already a loophole in place. I don't know why this is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I know from experience that Monday nights are popular bar nights in our neighborhood. And I don't want to see that creep in there. I would like these restrictions across the week. As far as the noise being shut off, frankly, midnight is too late when you're trying to get to sleep, so you have to get to your job in the morning. And if these were truly restaurants, we wouldn't be here tonight. They're not. They're nightclubs. Thank you.
Mayor? Now, one of them has said that they were ever in the gala to stand here and tell you that it's a nightclub. Not one of them. And if this last man can hear anything on 11 Sanford Street, I would be shocked. And if Mr. Donahue can hear anything on Nickel Avenue, I would be shocked. I'm born and raised in New Brunswick. I used to go to that place where it was called the Pizza Mill. That was our hangout. The face of New Brunswick has changed. Maybe they don't like the fact that there are Latins that patronize this place, and this is basically a Latin bar. Because all the people that were up here complaining are not Latins. But this is a place that they enjoy going to. You've heard them testify. You've heard people who've been in the neighborhood since the 50s, and they don't mind it. But all of a sudden, certain people feel this is their neighborhood, and they're going to decide who's there. But if you check your zoning ordinance, there's nothing that says family restaurants. This is a restaurant, and entertainment is an auxiliary use. He can have that.
Anything before we move on? Because we have like more. Go ahead, please.
Briefly, since we're talking about zoning, we are what's called R5A, and I'm sure there's someone from the city who can speak to that, Brent. Anyways, R5A requires, I guess the approved uses are single-family, two-family houses, townhouses, and churches. And that's it. I believe they are grandfathered in as a bar restaurant because the Pizza Mill was a bar restaurant, and I've lived in our house since 1992. The Pizza Mill was there until I think about 96. We never had a single noise complaint, not a single problem, because it was a bar restaurant. It wasn't a dance club. And I really think that if the city council is going to get serious about running this city and stopping these kind of problems that are popping up, Corona, Tropical, Tagala, these places all have problems. We have to say that dance clubs belong. Pearl is downtown, dance clubs belong. But they don't belong surrounded by homes, where people are trying to sleep and go to work the next day to pay the taxes and the rent that the city charges. Thank you very much.
I am Maria Colorado. I live at 153 Nickel Avenue, and I am the president of the Second Ward Neighborhood Block Club in Claremont. I did want to show my face. I didn't want you all to think I don't exist. Our members welcome businesses in our neighborhoods as long as they comply with the zoning codes, noise ordinances, and the social norms of our residential neighborhoods. our primary concern with the hours is that when the music is shut off, as Detective DeBonis testified, people come out into the community and make a lot of noise. And then there are other issues related to disorderly conduct in the community. At 2 in the morning, when you're trying to sleep, this just is not acceptable to anyone who is has to go to work the next morning. It just isn't. So if the restrictions are not put in place, that is what will happen. So we just ask that the restrictions be held, and we understand that this is difficult for businesses, but this is a residential neighborhood. Whether we want to believe it or not, you can walk through the neighborhood, it's a beautiful neighborhood, and people need to be able to feel comfortable living there, because we are losing our homeowners, we are losing our long-term tenants, because the community is allowing some non-conforming uses within our residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Can I just make one closing remark?
Yes, before, please.
If Mr. DeBonis is here, ask him how many of those calls on his CAD report actually had to do with music. And I think he will tell you very few. I'm not saying there wasn't noise, but it wasn't attributed to music. And that's what the police officer is there for, and that's what my client's paying for. So if he's not doing his job, that's a different issue. And that's not something my client can control, because the police officer is being paid by him through the city. So that is an issue that the police department has to deal with.
That's the only thing that I was, when everybody was talking, I do understand. With Tropicana, when there was the Tropicana, it was the same thing. I went to Tropicana to check to see if the noise was there, and you could see people that live across from Tropicana. You felt it. I live a few blocks from the Ghana, and I pass by there very frequently, and I must say that it has gotten better than it was before, that I used to see it. But I think from what I hear before, it's also, it has to do with the police officer, that if he is doing, because that's what I was asking Detective DeBonis, if the noise is from the patrons coming out or just the music. There's a combination that we cannot tell which is which. So we have to look at that also. I do understand that on a Sunday night, having a music and noise late at night is inconvenient, especially if you have to work on Monday, but we have to be also looking at the whole picture and how it affects everybody in the community, not just one sector, but everybody in the community. And with that, Mr. Shami?
Yes, if the council is through with the public hearing, I would suggest a motion to close the public hearing in a second, and then the council may want to discuss how they want to proceed with the special conditions.
Can I have a motion to close the public session?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes.
Just briefly, Madam Council President, members of council, the special conditions that were imposed at the last renewal, I believe I recited for the council. And again, just for the benefit of refreshing everyone's recollection, the special extra duty police officer was required from 10 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. on all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings. And I believe counsel for the licensee indicated that there's no objection to that special condition being renewed. So perhaps that's not an issue for debate with respect to consideration for the special conditions being imposed on this renewal term.
The last part of that, though, is for the purpose of maintaining order in and about the licensed premises.
That's correct, Mr. Anderson, and that language will continue, and the interpretation of that should be
Outside.
should be construed to mean in and outside, correct. And then we had the next special condition was all live and recorded music was to be turned off at 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday evenings and 11 p.m. on Sunday evenings. So that was the second prong, if you will, of the special conditions. Just for the benefit of the council, I know there was some question relative to why all the bars don't have the same restrictions as to noise or extra duty. Well, it goes to the very nature of what they're called. They're special conditions, and the law requires that in order to impose special conditions on a licensee, there have to be facts and circumstances special to that establishment that support the special conditions. Each bar, if you will, is like a snowflake. They're all different, and it would be it wouldn't be prudent for this particular council to impose blanket special conditions on any bar that maybe has a noise complaint or a problem outside. Each special condition on every particular licensed establishment has to be based upon that particular licensed establishment's facts and circumstances and reports, etc. So, in my opinion, the council has pursued special conditions and imposed them in an accurate and very conscientious manner that complies with the law. And I would suggest that you do the same with respect to this license.
Okay. Any comments? Anybody wishes to?
Well, there seems to be almost like cart and horse issues. So if we extend the music, people don't leave till the music is over, that makes it later in the evening that the impact of people going to their cars affects the quality of life. If we keep the restriction, then the impact on the neighborhood will be earlier. But it sounds like from Detective DeBonis' report that there's still an impact and that the police have made a good faith effort to try to ameliorate that effect by more active participation by the officer on board. You know, I guess I have a lot of sympathy for trying to get to bed on a school night, which I think that Sunday night is. So I would be reluctant to remove that special condition.
I agree on the Sunday one. I'm willing to work on the other ones, but Sunday I think it's a night that listen, deserve to go to bed in peace for Monday morning. So anybody else wishes to make an opinion?
I mean, if Trumbull County can go, I mean, it's some of the people here, if a guy goes till 12 o'clock, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, would you rather have it, you're saying it's okay to go to 1 o'clock 2 of the days, but get out earlier? That's what you were saying before. I mean, I'd almost want to make it 12 o'clock all 3 days.
Well, I just want to add that if we remember from previous hearings, Tropicana doesn't have any sound barriers that did not prepare that place to be deal with the noise. And I believe that we have heard in the past that the Gala has done quite a job, you know, making sure that there's sound barriers and to make sure that it minimizes the noise outside of the establishment. So that I would caution that would be the only difference. That's why we have it at 12 with Tropicana.
You know, I've been hearing these, you know, from out there, from here, you know, we sit through these hearings, and we always get to a point where we say, it doesn't have to always be adversarial. You know, it seems like it's arguments on this side, you know, the music is loud on this side we're saying, no, that's their imagination. And I don't know if it's been a concerted effort for both sides to sit down and say, okay, how can we both be good neighbors? You know, how can we both sit down and come to some type of agreement on what's acceptable, you know, within the constraints of the community. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves still sitting here arguing back and forth whether or not there's loud music. You know, now we're talking about decibels. You know, like, I don't have a measure. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a measure, but I know with certain levels where I can tolerate, and I'll say, you know what, that doesn't really bother me. Why? Because I may either patronize that establishment or loud music doesn't bother me. It's easy to say that. Then there's some that may say, you know, loud music does bother me, so I'm more inclined to make a phone call. I'm just uncomfortable with everybody, you know, with the two sides sat down and said, what are we going to do? You know what I'm saying? Let's sit down. I know they said there was an effort, you know, there was letters going back and forth, and whatever restrictions we put on, nobody's going to be totally happy. You know, until both sides sit down and decide what can we both do to be good neighbors. We can both coexist. We're not trying to run you out of business. We want you to exist in this neighborhood. You know, it doesn't matter what your background, what your economic situation is, what your ethnicity may be. How can we both sit down and be good neighbors, and then we come up with something after that?
So, yes, Mr. Hamilton.
That's what I was going to say, this is always difficult. In a matter like this, there's tinged with emotion, and there's been some very nice statements made on both sides, I think. But it's going to take for someone to make a motion.
That's what I'm asking.
It would seem to me that the motion is either that the conditions that previously imposed be reimposed, or that they not be reimposed, or that they be modified. And that's fairly straightforward, and see where you got 3 votes.
That's what I'm waiting for.
I make a
Well,
motion.
wait a minute, on the resolution here. Why are we doing this twice? The
This is from the
resolution
public
is right here.
hearing, and then it will say we'll rectify it.
The resolution for the gala, to approve or disapprove. Don't we do it then?
Oh, we can do it then, certainly.
So we want to do it twice.
Yeah, but we need to know what is it that we're voting on. If we're gonna keep it the same, we modify it, or we just change it altogether.
And Mr. Shammy might have to tailor whatever resolution
Yeah,
is
we
prepared, depending on whether you say yes or
Or
no.
it remains, we change, or we just modify it.
I'll make the resolution that we continue the restrictions as it was before.
Second.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Egan,
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming,
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti,
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming and sharing your perspective. We have now La Famosa. Anybody from La Famosa?
I believe the principal from La Famosa is here, Madam Council President, members of council. It's my understanding that with La Famosa, there is no objection to the renewal of those special conditions. I don't believe that the licensee is represented by council, but he is here present. For purposes of the public hearing, I don't know if anyone wants to be heard relative to this licensee. If so, now would be the time to ask for any comment as to La Famosa's renewal of special conditions.
If you could talk from the microphone, please. Your name and number. Ok, pues por favor acérquese al micrófono, diga su nombre y dirección.
Ciudad 17 de Ensenada y Modesto.
179 Senador Modesto.
Sí,
Su apellido Modesto.
Torres.
Torres, Modesto Torres. Dígame, ¿sabe por qué está acá, no?
Sí.
No voy a ir.
Ya.
Y está acá porque tiene unas restricciones en su licencia en el establecimiento. And you're here because there are some conditions in your, for the license of your establishment. ¿Qué usted quiere decir al consejo?
Yo mantengo todo el tiempo la regla que me han dado. Está todo igual.
He says that he agrees with the position and conditions that we have, and that's fine with that.
Y cualquier problema me dejen saber que no.
And any problems that there might be or any challenges, to please let me know, and we'll follow whatever we wish and we decide.
And that's my understanding from his discussions with Detective Bones.
Eso es lo que tenía entendido el abogado de acuerdo a su, cuando él habló con el detective Bones en la policía, que estaba reconociendo que no tenía ningún cambio.
Ok.
¿Algo más que decir?
No, muchas gracias.
Una pregunta.
Does he have any things that you do so well that you can tell the gala?
Dice que si usted le puede dar algún consejo al llegar a los otros establecimientos de que usted hace bien y que no tiene ningún problema.
Los dueños tenemos que por ahí en nuestras partes también.
He said that business owners have to put their, their files in line. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
So for the convenience of time, I would like to make a motion for continuation of the conditions on La Famosa. I make a motion to do that.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Egan,
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming,
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti,
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. So before we hearing, we have National Lounge LLC Berlea and Law, continuation of conditions on ABC license, and as there's no opposition to the continuation of conditions.
I would like to
We
make-
just, is anybody in the public who wishes to address the
For
council?
purposes of the public hearing, you could ask for any comment on the renewal of Platinum Lounge.
Just to follow process.
Right.
Anybody here who likes, from the public wishes to address on this document? No, have we none?
Make a motion to continuation of conditions on the Platinum Lounge, also known as Pearl, to continue Farley and Glover.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Next one, public hearing is no opposition to continuation of conditions for Tropical LLC, trading as Tropicana, continuation of conditions on ABC license. Mr. Shammy, obviously there is no opposition.
Yeah, the licensee on this one is also represented by counsel. We forwarded a letter. You'll not be appearing, but has no opposition to reimposing those special conditions. But for purposes of procedure, Madam Council President, you should ask for any public comment with respect to the renewal.
Any public
on
comment,
Tropical.
please? Yes, sir. Microphone name and address.
Peter Montague, 153 Nickel Avenue, member of the Second Ward Block Club. I'm speaking for members of the Block Club. We don't understand why you put restrictions on the time on the weekend, but not during the week. We would ask that you put the same restrictions 7 days a week that you're putting on, stop the music at midnight. If you look at their website, they stop serving food at 10 o'clock. So there's really no need for loud music and, that's about all they're doing is loud music. And if they're a restaurant in a neighborhood tavern, why should they be allowed to disrupt the neighborhood during the week but not on weekends? It doesn't seem logical. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a question.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, do you have a lot of complaints for?
Not specifically.
Gala or anything?
Not specifically, but his statement is accurate with the music. Sometimes it may be specific night, let's say a Thursday night, it may be on past midnight, and it may adversely affect the quality of life in the neighborhood.
Just so I'm understanding this, there's different hours of operations as far as music for the gala than it is for Tropicana?
As it exists now, and as I indicated to the council earlier, the reason special conditions are different from licensee to licensee is based upon problems and complaints that have been reported to the council through the police or members of the public. And I believe the reason the special conditions for the El Tropical are different than the Gala is because of the conduct on those particular evenings, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings. In fact, I didn't even think they were open at the beginning of the week. At least that was my recollection of the testimony when they were here in the past, but I may be wrong.
I was going to say the gala is not open. I know the gala is not open on Mondays.
No, I know the Gala's not, but I think El
Tropicana is open, but there's hardly anybody. Because I
Well,
live
must
in
have
that
been
neighborhood, so I
an
see
issue
it.
with the entertainment, right? But certainly, like I indicated before, there have to be facts and circumstances that support the special conditions. If not, those particular special conditions can be easily challenged on appeal if there's no facts and circumstances to support the special condition on any particular night. So I just caution the council in that regard.
So you're saying we can't hypothetically draft something like what might happen? Because, Detective Bonus said there's no, you said during the week, like say Monday through Wednesday, are there complaints, you know what I'm saying, were there complaints or?
I can't substantiate that.
Okay. So if we were to say that, we would be like hypothetically saying, okay, what might happen?
Right.
In your opinion, Detective DeBonis, do you think that the restrictions should be placed all week like we do at the one bar?
On one hand, it does seem reasonable. I'll use Mr. Shamy's statement before, it's the snowflake effect. This snowflake's a little different than the Gala and the Tropicana. I like to provide information, and then of course you guys are the decision makers. But I can see on one hand it would be considered reasonable.
I will see that, let's look at, see what are the incidents and before we make any changing Monday or adding without having sufficient data. And and to find out if it's necessary. So we have to be careful with that. So if you could give us that information for later on, and then we will make based on that, but right now?
Right now, I would like to make a motion to continue the conditions on the traffic valve, but I would also like it to be monitored during the week to review it, to come back, to see if we do have to make the other changes for, like we do at the gallon. Can I do that?
Let me caution you on that, Councilman Egan. Special conditions can only be placed on a license at the time of renewal. Once the license is renewed, you don't have another opportunity to do that again until next year, when it comes up for renewal again.
That's when we'll come back and revisit it. So I'll still continue with my motion to continue the conditions on the traffic valve.
Second. Roll call.
All right, who seconded that?
You're welcome.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. At this time, thank you everybody for, who spoke to the council on this particular, public hearing. At this time, we have, ordinance as a second reading. We have ordinance 061301, bond ordinance amending and supplementing bond ordinance number 0120-903, which provides for the construction of the New Brunswick Landing Project 324, finally adopted by the City Council of the City of New Brunswick in the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey on December 16, 2009, to increase appropriation revenue to $1.9 million and to increase the authorization of loans of the city to $1.9 million to finance part of the cost thereof. If does anybody, any citizen wishes to be heard about this particular ordinance?
Ms. Escobar, I just wanted to repeat what I said from the last meeting. This isn't a final accounting of the financing on that job. It was a county project, yet the Green Acres money that was used on the project in the form of a loan and in the form of a grant flowed through the city. And this is a final accounting that is required by Green Acres. We put it in ordinance form. Again, the grant had a value of $1.9 million. The loan had a value of $1.9 million for a total of $3.8. The county put in $3.8 of its own money. The total project cost was $7.6. The city does not pay a nickel. Even though the debt is on our books, there's a separate agreement with the county, and they service a $1.9 million loan at no cost to the city.
I move the ordinance.
Second.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Ordinance 061302 is an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the City of New Brunswick, Chapter 10, Vehicles and Traffic, the need meter parking on Somerset Street alongside the two Barnes and Noble storefronts, and add limited parking zone on Somerset Street alongside the View and Barnes and Noble storefronts. Anybody from the public wishes to address the council on this ordinance? Anyone? Move the ordinance.
Second.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Ordinance 061303 is an ordinance to fix the salaries and wages for Firemen's Mutual Benevolent Association Local Number 17 for 2011-2014. Mr. Lackey, if you could give us a very brief summary of this before we proceed.
Yeah, this will be the ordinance that approves or authorizes the salaries of our firefighters, and they are represented by FMBA number 17. They are the rank and file. They are not the superior officers. We negotiated a 4-year contract with them, and this ordinance reflects the salaries and the salary increases that we agreed upon. The percentage increase to their salary in 2011 was a 0% increase, and their increases for 2012, 2013, 2014 will be 2.25% per year. It represents years of negotiation, and It's on second reading for you. We need an approved ordinance before we can pass on the salary increases to these firefighters.
Thank you. Does anybody from the public wishes to address the council on this particular ordinance? Having none, move the ordinance.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Ordinance 061-304 is an ordinance to amend the management salary ordinance for 2012 to 2014. So Larkin, if you would give us a summary on this. Please.
Yeah, this ordinance establishes the ranges by which you can pay your management personnel. If you see by the ordinance, there is ranges established for different titles, for different years. The only thing I can tell you is that the ordinance assumes a 2% increase for management personnel in 2013. It does not guarantee that. That's a decision that is made by the mayor every year, generally over the summer. But the ordinance establishes a range such that if every management employee got a 2% increase this year, they would fall within the range as you would expect them to do.
Thank you. Anybody from the public wishes to address the council on this particular ordinance? Having none?
Move the ordinance.
Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. At this time, we're going on to resolutions, starting with resolution 061-352 and going up to resolution 061-389. Resolution, just to remind the public, 359, 360, 361, and 362, we already dealt with in the public hearing, and resolution 382 and 383 had been held at the request of the city administrator. Any citizen wishes to address the council on any of these particular resolutions at this time? If you do so, just go into the microphone, give name and address. Having done?
Move the resolution.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Shocked. Yes.
Councilmember Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have an item for discussion by council, the music festival request by the Brunswick Jazz. Anybody here from, Ms. Larkin, would you like to give us some reasons and here just as a follow-up, just to have it on the record?
Well, if you recall the last meeting, representatives from the New Brunswick Jazz Festival came before you and asked for a $20,000 sponsorship of their event. Apparently it's the 9th annual New Brunswick Jazz Festival. They, by their own admission, told you they were an LLC. They are, they do not have not-for-profit status. And I, on the same evening, made the point that we did not anticipate a request like this, nor included funding in the budget for a particular program like this. I would also just remind you that we do not make, as a practice, contributions to for-profit enterprises. And as such, the administration is not in a position to say yes to the request this year. Should that, in the future, the New Brunswick Jazz Group attain a not-for-profit status, I think the city would be more than happy to review it. I think we are very much would like to see the event continue to be successful. I just don't think we're the right party to contribute to the event as things are constituted. Maybe the local banks and businesses, and maybe, I know City Market is contributing a portion of money to the event, but maybe those are better contributors than the city is at this point.
Thank you. Any comments from city council members on this?
I think it's great if we can help them in any way, except for the monetary financial way, but we can help them with anything else that we can do. I'm sure they generate something for the city.
You can either have a motion to reject the request or just not act on it.
they mentioned it, but they didn't request it. They just, well, they technically they did. So let's have a action. Right? Very good. So action at this time. Thank you. At this time, we're going to start the public portion of the meeting. Like I said before, we are, for the first time, we are using the microphone. So when you come up to the mic, just state your name and address, and we're trying, hoping that with the microphone, we could better hear you, better service you, and there will be no confusion. So when we have a motion or a second in the floor, who was able to talk and who was not able to talk. So if you wish to address the council at this time, just line up, move forward, and we'll be more than happy. There's no time limits, but there's no time limits, but no time limits. But I do.
We have ordinance where there's limits, Mr. Hamilton?
No, you have rules, it's in the ordinance.
Do we have rules on those limits, how long we talk?
The rule says 5 minutes, and then the police will go back to the line and come back, so there's no limits.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Council President, members of the council, and the public, it's an honor to address you tonight on some critically important issues facing our city. Emergencies happen every day in New Brunswick, whether it's a fire, a medical emergency, or an accident, an instance of violence, or dangerous criminal on the loose. Notifying the public in these cases is critically important. And I want to ask the council about a year ago now about the city's Nixle notification system. It's a text message and email alert system that I asked why wasn't it used more often, and I was given the answer that it's only able to be used in true emergencies. But as a subscriber to many Nixle services for different municipalities across Middlesex County, it became clear that that wasn't accurate. The Nixle system actually has 3 levels of alerts: community, advisory, and alert, it's called. And I want to constructively encourage the council to revisit when we use the system and develop real policy on that. I wanted to take the initiative myself, so I actually looked at a way I could make a positive change here, and I went to attend a meeting of the Emergency Management Council here in town. You know, anyone who visited the city website for the past several years, looked up the directory of boards and commissions, would be reasonably put under the impression that New Brunswick's Emergency Management Council was diligently meeting every second Wednesday of the month at the fire headquarters. And as you might know, that's not the case. After I was shut down by you, Madam Council President, at the last meeting, denied the right to speak during the public comment portion, I sought answers to those questions at this board. I went to their meeting on June 12th. I was genuinely excited to see who showed up and how the meetings worked and how I could help. I assume there'd be discussion about disasters and emergencies that have happened in other communities, such as the tragic bombing at the Boston Marathon. Perhaps there were lessons that could be learned from that. Perhaps there were best practices that were successful. I also assumed that recent and impending local issues would be discussed, like the hurricanes that have hit and a recent heat wave this summer. I also hoped that the bomb threat investigated at the Lincoln Elementary School would be a topic of discussion at that meeting. But to my surprise, there was no meeting. In fact, there was no Emergency Management Council. No one showed up to the meeting except for me. I spoke with several helpful firefighters and respectfully asked what was going on. It became clear that the Emergency Management Council does not exist beyond on paper. Several members who are listed as members did not know what the council was. It's embarrassing. While the boards were not actually up to speed on membership, when Mr. Marquetta told me that the boards were up to speed on membership, this is a case where the members were not up to speed on the board. And that's really bad. I called Mr. Marquetta. He's a member of this board, or is supposed to be a member of this Emergency Management Commission. I called him right away that day. I left a message. I also emailed him, and I believe I CC'd every member of the council on that email. Needless to say, he did not return my call, but I was even more disappointed when that email was not returned, knowing that the council members had seen it, and it's been now a full week since I informed the council that this council is supposed to be looking into emergency management, has not been doing its job. This is a state-mandated body, the Emergency Management Council. Every city has to have one. Its purpose, of according to the Attorney General's office, is to assist the municipality in establishing the various local volunteer agencies needed to meet the requirements of all local emergency management activities, also to establish an adequate organization to assist in supervising and coordinating the emergency management activities in the local municipality. This is an important issue, and I am really, really upset that the council does not treat it as an important issue. As I said at the last meeting, immediately when you were sworn in, the first question I asked both you and Councilman Egan was if you were willing to televise the council meetings. And at the May 1st meeting, I brought that up again, and your quote was, quote, "I haven't discussed that with the new council members." And those new council members would be Mr. Fleming, who's now served for more than a year on the council, and Mr. Anderson, who's been on since the start of the new year. So that's not encouraging. All the other boards could also be having their meetings video recorded, broadcast on television, a way to include more people in the process and inform more people about the great work that some of these boards do. I think the city has a lot of work ahead of it, and I have brought up, I've named the boards that are struggling and not meeting and not being productive, and the response has been lackluster or nothing. I do credit Mr. Councilman John Anderson was the only one who responded to any of my emails I've been sending you for the past couple of weeks on this, and I do appreciate his response. But yeah, at the council meeting, you told me I'm not able to respond to you. I will find out information on it, and at the next meeting I will try to have an answer. And then at the next meeting there was no answer. I had to get up and make the point again. And Mr. Marquetta said that, quote, "All the boards are up to speed on membership. We have one vacancy on the Environmental Commission right now, but everybody else is in place." And that statement was false. Just rudimentary research into it showed that there were at least 13 vacancies, not one. And I challenged him right away and said the Minority Business Enterprise Commission doesn't have any members at all. And he did concede that that is a defunct board at this time. 2 days later, I sent an email to him outlining all the problems with the boards and commissions. And I just don't get any response. It seems like, when the issue of the mayor coming to the council meetings or not coming to the council meetings came up, Mr. Anderson said, I personally do not want the mayor at the city council meeting. He can have his own meetings, that's just my opinion. And then I asked, when can people go see the mayor? And the response was, you'll have to call the mayor's office. And the next question was, does the mayor have public availability? And the answer was, you will have to talk to Mr. Marquetta. And then the next question was, it's all controlled through Mr. Marquetta. And the answer was, that's right. So because you told me to pursue these issues that are important with Mr. Marquetta, I did. And in good faith, I emailed Mr. Marquetta information about these failures of these boards and commissions on May 17th, again on May 20th, again on May 28th, and again on May 31st, and received no response. On June 3rd, NewBrunswickToday.com published an article that showed how his statements were not accurate, the statements he gave to the council. 2 days later, I came to the council meeting. I raised my hand to be acknowledged towards the end of the meeting, but instead of saying what you normally say and saying, is there any other member of the public who would like to address the council at this time, for whatever reason, you didn't say that. You said, at this time, I would like to take a motion to adjourn. And you didn't offer up the opportunity for anyone else to speak, even though I had not yet been recognized. And then Ms. Garlotti said, so moved. And then you said, yes, Mr. Cradham, and you held off. And then Mr. Egan said, move to adjourn. And it's all on video, you can look at it. And then Ms. Escobar, you said that I give you one break because we are almost done. One question, and you tried to limit me to one question.
I know what I said, Mr. Credible, so I'm going to...
Okay, well, I think that was a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act, that I was not given the chance to speak during the public comment portion like everyone else. And
Yes, can you finish statements so I could, because there's a lot of statements there, so we could finish and address those.
Yeah, I came up after that interaction. I spoke to you, and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry my temper got the best of me, but I didn't get an apology, even though you kind of talked down to me. You said, don't go there because I let you talk all the time.
Absolutely.
You said, I just asked anybody from the public, which you didn't. You said, I said nobody. We did a motion in a second, and you decided to ask a question. So you know what? Let's wait for the next meeting, which is here tonight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming, and have a good evening was how that meeting ended. And I was denied the right to speak. But I've looked at other communities, and they use the Nixle system. They have an emergency management council that's functional. Just yesterday, Robert Wood Johnson Hospital tweeted to mention that Somerset Street repaving project began today. The city government didn't choose to notify anyone that the Somerset Street paving was going. To their credit, the parking authority did retweet that tweet. But the city government has many more followers and didn't make an effort to use any of these resources they have. A Facebook page with thousands of people on it, a Twitter page with lots of followers, a Nixle system that can directly text and give email alerts by geography.
Let us address, do you have any other, besides the Nixle, the management?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out some of the ways that Nixle can be used. So,
You already did.
Piscataway Police has used them for road closures. Franklin Township has used them for flooding. East Brunswick Police has even used them to make notifications of crimes like armed robberies that have happened and apprehension of a thief. Highland Park has used it to promote environmentalism and their public access television station to seek programming for it. Milltown used it to mention a power outage. South River used it to promote a bicycle rodeo and a public safety day. South Brunswick used it to talk about a traffic light being out and the evacuation of Princeton's university's campus. And out of those 10 agencies, 8 of them made mention of the flood warnings and watches in effect last week. New Brunswick didn't use their system for that. I think we can do better. I think our citizens deserve better. I think New Brunswick deserves the very best in emergency management. We know what we can do to be prepared. We're just not doing it. We need the Emergency Management Council to be active, and we need the Nixle system to be way more active. Thank you very much for your time.
So first of all, we spoke after the meeting, and if you recall, if you see, I do understand that everybody wants to be the hero of their own story, but when there was a motion and there was a second on the table. So if you listen and you take it, you should know that there was a motion and a second. I told you, we are almost done, but I will allow you to have one question. You decided that I was denying when you have spoken before, so I don't know why you said that you allowed. But again, everybody wants to be a hero of their own story, and I give you that. And you did, and I told you when we spoke, I told you that you were correct about the commissions, that there was a mistake. Thank you. Didn't I say thank you for bringing it up to? Did I say thank you?
You did thank you.
Thank you. And I thank you for bringing it up and doing your job, and we corrected it. It was an old version. In terms of the management, emergency management commission, Director Rowe, you want to address that?
Sure. Mr. Cradleville is right on one thing. There wasn't a meeting, and in fact, there is no Emergency Management Council. As coordinator of the Office of Emergency Management, which is what we are since I have become the coordinator of the committee, that does basically the same thing. We don't meet every Wednesday at fire headquarters. We meet as necessary. But we're on the cutting edge of training, exercises, and drills throughout the state and the country. Our deputy director just attended an OEM drill in Texas A&M just a week ago. It didn't cost the city anything. We've had tabletop drills with Rutgers University. Just last week, probably a day ahead of Mr. Cradleville's visit, we did a tabletop with, well, actually an actual drill with the Board of Education, a school shooting, where we actually went out there and had some people act as shooters in the school. So we're always
I need so much use for that.
We are always up to date on what we need to do. We're prepared for disasters, for Hurricane Sandy. We didn't meet every 2 weeks, we met every day. We started 2 days before the hurricane, and we met up to 10 days after the hurricane. So when it's time for us to come together and meet, we meet. When we need to do some drills or discussions and bring ourselves up to date, we also meet with other county agencies monthly to discuss what's going on around the county. So he's right, there's no office, there's no Emergency Management Council, but we do have an Office of Emergency Management, and we have an emergency management team. Most of the names on that list are part of that team. And so, to Mr. Clatterville, I could just say, give you props. Your article was very entertaining. However, I thought it lacked some information and credibility, and so that it made headlines. But thanks for putting us up there anyway.
Yes, and that is it. They did the mix. So for the drill, they just talked about the high school. Yes.
Ms. Esquire, I would also point out, while Mr. Cradwell is speaking of a local emergency council, by resolution, every 3 years, you put together, this council puts together a local emergency preparedness committee, which is made up of 15 different people, all department heads. There's not a person on that list who shouldn't know they're on the committee. So while we may say there's no council, there is a committee that's established by resolution every 3 years.
Well, let me just say, what they didn't know, that name, and they didn't know that there was a meeting every Wednesday at fire headquarters. So there is no such thing.
Thank you. Ma'am? Name and address, please.
Deborah Key, 13 Homelander Drive. I came here tonight to tell you a story about one of your detectives. He came to my door once looking for my niece. She does not live there. I told him she does not live there. Then he came back again. The second time he came back, I got kind of ugly with him because I had already told him I would get in contact with her. Now, I volunteer at the health food store, the co-op. On my way there, I go to 7-Eleven. Now, twice I've seen them at 7-Eleven. I'm being harassed. I'm tired of it. And his name is Andrew Weiss. I'm tired of seeing this man in my face every time I walk on the street because I have told him not to come back to my house looking for my niece. She's not in trouble. He wants her to do something, and she doesn't want to do it, and he can't make her do it. I'm tired of this man saying stuff to me. I'm going to tell you what he said to me. Is that okay? He told me, "You're so feisty." This was in 7-Eleven. "You're so feisty, why don't you have a date with me?" I called him an MF and walked out of 7-Eleven. Then, you thought it was funny. It's not funny to me. I'll be 59 years old September. I don't have to take this. I've been in New Brunswick. I volunteered in every church, every Elijah's Promise, every place in New Brunswick that you can volunteer. That's what I do. And I love my community. Now, yesterday, I go in 7-Eleven, they come in 7-Eleven, him and his partner. I know his partner doesn't say too much, but I asked him, I said, "Sir, could you please not say anything to me every time you see me?" He told me that he could say anything to me he wanted to say to me. I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what you do. There's going to be a function Saturday. Could you please come to this function?" He said to me, "Well, why don't you come to the courthouse when the guy that I shot is on trial?" I don't want him to say that to me anymore, because then I think he put it in my head that he might shoot me. I'm just letting you know I'm tired. No weapon formed against me will prosper.
Were you online?
Are they online?
Go ahead.
Okay, because they have a line over there, Mr. Pittman.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Mario, so you yield to Tornell, right?
We yield. Excuse me, right
Oh, I got
here. There's a line, Mr. Pittman. If you
Oh,
just
I-
go in the back, the young man was first. There
I
has
have to sit, so I'll sit down and I'll just wait for that
Okay,
young lady.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Name
Hi
and
there.
address, please.
My name is Mario Stenesiu, and I live in the 5th Ward. Now, I noticed something on the agenda here of approving for the, sorry, just took a moment, just lost it there. Yes, for utilizing the, so for adding a fundraising bicycle ride And also there a bike route from Bucolic Park to right on College Ave on Hamilton Street. And I thought this was wonderful. But it reminded me of something I was reading about last year, about bike lanes actually getting implemented in New Brunswick. I have the article actually up right here of getting bike lanes on Hardenberg, Plum Street, Harvey Street, Hartwell, Robinson, Woodbridge, certain streets in New Brunswick becoming roads that would have bicycles alone. And this was something that excited me greatly at the time. And part of this is due to the fact that I am proud to say I'm a student of the Blaustein School here. And I see bicycles and alternative forms of transportation as an excellent way to encourage a healthy, thriving city that has less congestional problems and has a better, more happy, even let's say, populace. But part of this is also, I'll admit, selfish. I myself am a regular commuter on bicycle. And I have had the most terrifying times here in Brunswick. I've lost count of the amount of times I've tried to go down George Street, I've tried to go down Somerset Street, I've tried to just simply get from Cook Douglas to College Avenue and have had to avoid getting run over. My good friend Benjamin here is also going to be speaking today. Had a door opened on him going down George Street, was clipped and flung over his handlebars. The city I do know, I remember hearing of an issue having to do with side street parking and seeing the sharrows that then came up, but I'm sorry, but as someone who does regularly commute in the city on bicycle, the sharrows don't do much. While the sentiment is nice, you still aren't having that road shared with you, you still have the presence of automobiles, that the lack of a dedicated bike lane really does not encourage that synergistic system share roads seem to imply. So my question just to you all is, and forgive me here, this might just be my ignorance, or this might just be the fact that I'm a little green in the city of New Brunswick, but what did happen to those bike lanes, and what stands in the future here? Because I don't know about yourself here, but myself, my friends, my classmates, my peers here, do try to utilize bicycles as a way of taxing the bus system less there, of not having to use cars as much, of a way to promote a better, healthier city, and I just like to see what are the city's thoughts on that.
Mr. Harrison, would you like to address that?
Sure. The bike lanes he's referring to are out there. We put them in a year ago. Most of them are sharrows, which are shared roads. They don't have a specific dedicated lane. They are the sharrows because there is not enough width on the streets to provide a travel lane for both the cars and bicycles in a separated fashion. You know, the way you'd be able to do that would be to remove the on-street parking in those areas, particularly in the 5th, 6th Ward, and I don't think that would be something that the community up there would particularly find attractive, to remove all the on-street parking to do that. We do have some dedicated bike lanes in the city, particularly on Remsen Avenue. That was the first one we put in last year. There are other areas that are designated as multi-path bike routes, such as the sidewalk area along Route 18. And the county is moving forward with their plan to do a dedicated bike lane, which will go from essentially the College Avenue campus through the downtown area down to the Cook Douglas campus. They have recently approved their hiring of a construction manager for the project. I understand they are looking to put out the bids for the project later this summer or early fall, and have those bids returned later this year. I don't know whether they'll be able to get construction started on that in this construction season or not, but hopefully they'll be able to do that. It's being funded with funds from the federal government, and we'll add, I believe it's about a 2.5-mile bike lane going essentially from, as I said, George Street in the College Avenue area to the Douglas campus. And we're always looking for additional opportunities to do that. And some of the other issues he was bringing up, a lot of it has to do with aggressive driving, and that is something that the city has also been attempting to do. The New Brunswick Police Department has had a grant where they've recently been out doing decoys for pedestrians walking in the cross streets and issuing summonses on that. We have also been putting in flashing crosswalks, both in the downtown area and out in our neighborhoods, particularly in near schools. We've been upgrading the crosswalks in areas. So we've been doing a lot of things to try to improve the pedestrian friendliness of the city.
Thank you.
Question there. I do remember hearing that a lot of these roads have become shared roads.
Questions to me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I I do remember hearing that a lot of these roads could not now become dedicated bike lanes due to the width of the roads there and the fears of taking away side street parking, which, as we all know, is very crucial in New Brunswick. My only question there is then, why did the city government release the official map with the completed streets initially that showed they would have bike lanes on them, only to later find that the width of the roads was not enough to support a bike lane as well? Were these calculations and were these estimates not done beforehand, before this map was put up there for the people to see, or what changed there? Was there not this analysis taking place before the money was being talked up to be spent on this project?
The map shows the lines is referring to as shallows. Doesn't show them as dedicated lane, shows them as shallows.
Okay. Anything else?
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
My name is Ben McCready. I'm a resident of the 5th Ward. I just have a curious question about the agenda. The 7th resolution says today's agenda for this meeting is, the text is just adopt bylaws for conflict of interest for New Brunswick Alliance. I was just curious as to what that was.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yeah, we got communication indicating that the bylaws that existed had one item that had not been included in it.
Can you explain what the alliance is, the municipal alliance on drug and
Municipal alliance with respect to drugs, hate, and control. And so that this bylaw now has everything in it that everybody wants to have it, as far as we know.
So it's that we get funding for the municipal alliance, so this is something that they require in every municipal town now, that they put a clause on conflict of interest. So that's it, we're just adding that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a paper, oh. Where's this paper?
Hi,
Hi,
I'm April.
how are you?
From the second
Name and
floor.
address? Oh, April? There.
And I was just wondering, this is my first council meeting in New Brunswick, and I found it a little bit strange. Why is it that not everyone's facing the people that they're addressing? I don't understand that. It's not a personal attack, but I've been to other meetings before where I was able to actually look the people in the eye that I was talking to, and I don't.
Absolutely, it's something that preceded some of us. The layout of the room is small, and we're trying to work it out. There's someone that I might switch the table, trying to work it out in a way that everybody fits. The city council chambers is going under some renovations and construction, and when they do that, everybody will be facing the public, along with some changes that they're going to make in the chamber. So hopefully soon, and it doesn't happen too soon, hopefully we could work something out that we are all facing the public. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
First, I want to start with saying I got a phone call earlier today. I'm not sure how accurate the information is, but someone told me that retired police officer James Knight had passed, and if that was the case, I would like to send my condolences. We weren't that close when he was on the police force, but once he retired, we built a close rapport. And that was shocking news to me. It really devastated. Yeah, I heard he passed, so I don't know if you want to confirm it. I'd like to send my condolences to his family, and he was a great guy. Also, I want to get to, I heard you mention something about, maybe when I was sitting down, you mentioned Daniel Mason for some reason. I didn't have a copy of the resolutions.
There was a resolution on payment of
lawyer.
Lawyer.
Defendant.
Lawyer, Daniel Mason.
You gotta get past that. All right. Also, as far as the jazz festival goes, that if anything, if you guys can do anything to make that event happen, by all means, support it. It's an excellent event. It's something, like I said, my daughter, she's trying to play the trumpet now, and there was mentioning at I went to the superintendent, to the Board of Ed meeting yesterday where you sent me to. And they were mentioning about the Lincoln School students that they have a jazz program and they just played at the George Street Playhouse. So that would be an excellent event. Anything possible, maybe they could team up with a nonprofit and make this happen and then get assistance from the city, who knows? You know, but I really would like to see that event take place and be as powerful it could be with the assistance of the Brunswick. As far as the Board of Ed meeting that I went to, I got some information. I spoke personally to Superintendent Mr. Cap, and he said, as far as my concern was the Lincoln School not being evacuated, dealing with the children, and he said it was a joint effort with the police department and him. It was his decision cohesively with the police department. You told me that this had nothing to do with it, and that wasn't the truth. You know, it was the police department's decision and his decision. I wanted to know why that decision was made. I asked him. He basically said because Edison does it. We're not Edison. You know, and I referred to, you know, my concern was, he said that he didn't evacuate the school. Well, I'm not gonna say he. We didn't evacuate the school because they felt that it was a hoax. Now, how can you determine why something is a hoax through a letter? Now, what was the letter written in crayon? How can you determine what is a hoax and what's not a hoax through a letter? And how could you also say something is a hoax when you take the extent of putting having canine dogs search throughout the school while the children are still present? You had canine dogs walking throughout the school, children got no idea of it. And how thorough is the search when the bomb could have been amongst the children? You know, questions, yeah, because somebody's going to have to, there's a new captain and I know his take on it.
Captain Saber, if you have any information, because as far as my understanding was that the Board of Education procedure is the one that, they're the one who set the procedures in terms of anything that happens within the school system.
Correct. It's not the police department that decides to evacuate, it's the school. It may have not been the superintendent, it may be the principal of the school. It's his call. In that situation, it was his call not to.
So that's the policy that they have.
That's the policy, correct.
That's the policy. So can we work on changing that policy immediately? Because, like I said, I'm not comfortable with a policy being retarded and we still continue to go on with that. That policy makes no sense to me. And especially when, like I said, NICSU was important, the tool. I didn't get anything from NICSU notifying me that there was a bomb scare, but like Charlie said, Princeton University, 2 weeks after, not only evacuated a campus, they evacuated the entire campus for 24 hours. You couldn't get into downtown Princeton at all because of a bomb scare. Now my thing is, you know, not only did the city of New Brunswick Police Department and the superintendent of New Brunswick jeopardize that school and the well-being of those children, they jeopardized that entire neighborhood. Anybody who lived on that street was subject to death on the hands of the New Brunswick Police Department and the superintendent, Richard Kaplan. And I think that should be addressed immediately. Also, my concern is with what this young lady said as far as Detective Andrew Weiss. Now, you know, I raised concern before about this detective. I flat out told you the demeanor that he has, how he conducts himself on the streets, how he interacts with the community, and this is confirmation. I've seen him today, with a smirk on his face. And the problem I have is, for one, is when I raised that issue, Captain Miller, his only response was go to the internal affairs. Every time he mentions something in his room dealing with police department, the response is go to internal affairs. Now he's a captain. The thing is, for you to be a captain and hear every first and third Wednesday what type of conduct your police officers are doing, and you not at least say, well, wait a minute. Everybody's not lying on these police officers. Let me look into what's really going on. Now, if he would have took that stance, that officer would have never harassed her. He would have never made the vulgar comment about a teenager getting shot in his back and now permanently paralyzed. I wasn't there. You guys say I make stuff, I wasn't there. I don't know that teenager is now going to court. I'll be there now because of him. But I don't know that he's going to court facing criminal charges. But he's putting that out in our community. I raised that issue. Maybe I'm being taken for a joke, but no one addressed it. No one took it serious. And the problem is, I dealt with other police officers outside of New Brunswick. Let me give you an example. I was called, my claim to fame basically is that, me advocating for Barry DeLoach. I beg to differ. But I was called to another community in North Jersey. And they wanted me to advocate for that community, it's a community in Garfield. First night I went out there, they had a bullhorn waiting for me. This guy, Tormel Pippin, a very good DeLoach guy, and they had officers surrounding. We're about to start a rally, and we're going to walk to the police department and protest. The minute I got there, I seen an officer looking at the kid that got killed. Malik Williams was killed by a police officer. That police officer had tears in his eyes. That was unheard of to me. The police officer, I have pictures on Facebook. The police officer had tears in his eyes. And my thought was, you know what? This officer is guilty. That police officer's crime, by looking at this young man's picture, he's guilty. But as the protest went on, I discovered the police officer assisted us. He shined the light when we came across a pothole. He run in front, blocked traffic. And me observing his demeanor, you know what I know? And I realized that it wasn't that he was saying that officer was guilty. He was crying because it was an unfortunate situation. That's why he was crying. The entire situation was unfortunate. And you got Andrew Weiss walking through this community, and he don't realize that that was an unfortunate situation. The entire police department don't understand that that was an unfortunate situation. If Barry DeLoach died and those officers, everybody in the police department should look at it, this entire situation. An officer has to result to shooting a community member is unfortunate on both sides. These officers don't get that. They think if I beat the case from shooting somebody, I got over. Andrew Weiss thinks he got over. And it's up to you, and it's up to Captain Sabo. Yep. It's up to Captain Sabo to tell him that he didn't get over. That's what the community needs to address to these officers. That he didn't beat a case. He was just involved in an unfortunate situation, not unless it was deliberate. Thank you.
Hold on, real quick, just to address it real quick. What you said, Tormel, we've had conversations in the past. I don't know if you remember, years and years ago when I was a sergeant, on nights, at 3 o'clock in the morning on the corner of Stephen and Lee. Okay. We spoke. I don't know if you remember that back in the day. Okay, we did. And heartfelt conversations where he explained to me some of the issues he saw in the community way before you became an activist. And had great conversations, I believe. We had a good conversation about it. To sit here and say that the cops don't care and that's not unfortunate, as a captain of operations that runs all the uniform guys, not the detectives, it bothers me. It really, truly bothers me to hear them say that we don't feel for that. I knew Barry DeLoach. I knew his whole family. That's a situation I wish would have never happened. So to sit there and beat us up individually is ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous to say that.
First off, I didn't beat you guys up.
You did beat us up. You're beating the department up as well.
Mr. Pittman,
No.
you're gonna get a chance. Let you finish. If it's not, then you come back to this. So
I'm not going, I just want to say my piece.
Thank you,
As far as the police department goes. If there's an individual that you spoke of, that this young lady spoke about, Mr. Weiss, detective, I will gladly look into that. They don't work for me. Internal affairs is the route to go. That's the proper thing to say. It is. But I will immediately speak to the supervisor tomorrow and find out what's going on, if there's an issue. If there's several complaints, that's something that we would do. Tormel, I'm surprised you don't remember that conversation, because we had a heartfelt conversation years ago.
I'm 37.
Okay, and you remember me. I was on the street every night, every day. I worked anti-crime, I worked narcotics, I did MPTs. I've been here for 20 years doing this stuff, and I have a good reputation as a police officer. I don't have complaints, and I try to portray that to my guys. We have a lot of good guys that come here and work hard and are upset about bad things that happen. So, am I going to say that you're never going to encounter a cop with, for lack of a better term, a shitty attitude here and there? No, it's going to happen, and it has happened. I'm not going to sit here and lie, and we address that. That is my job to address.
But to say that none of us care and that you know, the whole police department needs to change is ridiculous.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I mean, Mr. Pittman, I'm a public figure. Last 2-3 years, police have been following me. You know, when I protest, you got video cameras. I probably was in the newspaper. I was in Star Ledger, Home News, Targum, and any other paper in New Brunswick today. I'm not gonna leave it out. Probably about 70 different times, 70 different occasions. And, you know, people know my name, Tormel Pittman. If you can go to any video footage, any news article, any speech I've conducted publicly and said that I am against the New Brunswick Police Department or any police department as a whole, if you can find one sentence, me saying that, I will never return to any of these council meetings ever again. Yeah, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to do some research why I said that all police officers are bad. You got video footage of me for the 3 months that we were protesting? You got public speeches. Look through the newspapers. Name one time that I said all police officers are bad. If you could produce that information to me, I will not return to any of these council meetings.
Council, if I'm wrong, I just took it as, and maybe I heard Mr. Pittman wrong.
No,
I took it as everyone.
I remember you on the
sensitive.
streets. I remember you on the streets.
Okay.
Me and you never, no wait, we never had an incident. I never brought his name up. I never said that this officer did this or this officer did that. You know, and I understand that there are situations where officers where, to me, every officer don't have control. I'm here to target the bad ones. I don't focus on the good ones, okay, cool. But I'm here to target the bad ones because they give an entire, you know, they're gang members that are good guys. They're great, excellent guys, good fathers, family men. But the bad ones make it bad to join the Bloods and the Crips. That's my point. You can't say, just like you can't say every police officer is bad, you can't say every gang member is bad. But the ones that do the shooting and killing and mugging and stuff, they make it bad for the entire organization. And that's all that I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Hi, yes, my name is Danielle Moore. I live at 211 Joyce Comer Avenue. About 4 weeks ago, we were having a meeting and it was mainly talking about water. I had mentioned to you about Joyce Comer Avenue Spring and Railroad Avenue with problems with water and sewage, where you didn't take it personally. He came up and spoke up and said, you're working something out with North Brunswick. Mr. Golding, he's the city engineer. Oh, okay, yes. Believe me, I'm not no engineer or anything, but where you did not take me serious, I'm not going to say I'm psychic. It's not like I get a home newspaper and say what's going to happen the next day. When I say something, it's for a good reason. That was where Tropical Storm Andrea, where I've been here over 30 years, and with this stream causing major damage, the city has to respond to this quickly, where you had 4 blocks underwater, people trapped in their houses. If you were in the school, those teachers had to wait till 11, 12 o'clock at night until the water went down to come out of the school. Where the city is not taking this serious enough, then the fire department being called on still, okay, we have water in the basement, please respond to such and such. Where what, if the water is getting higher and higher, where it reaches their electricity, what, everyone will get electrocuted, right? Electrocuted, excuse me. So when is the city going to take matter into this? I mean, this water has never come this high before. And you're saying that you're still waiting on North Brunswick? What, this is hurricane season. The city has to do something soon with this. What I told you, it's causing a problem on Railroad Avenue also, due to where now you have a sub pump on Howard Street and Railroad Avenue. I don't know if it's connected to the same situation, but I told you it was 2 problems. What, where you're pumping water from out of this one, going to the next street, pumping it over. You have to, where you have sewer gas coming out, and then by Food Town, what? It was raining, I was shaking, but just a picture to show how you have raw sewage
coming out all on the sidewalk, how it smells so bad. After the water goes down, only the street sweeper cleans in the street. They do not clean everyone's neighborhood where you have sewage still all on the sidewalk. I mean, it stinks so bad, which that's a health hazard where the city needs to respond to this as soon as possible, where this is getting extremely bad.
Mr. Goldstein, I know that you did this and you did
Yeah.
bring it up at the last council meeting. Yes, Mr. Goldstein.
It's a problem that's been going on.
Excuse me, sir.
for a while.
Excuse me, sir.
Remember Hurricane
Sir,
Floyd?
excuse me. We have, Mr. Goldstein has the floor. Thank you.
Yes, when the woman was in a couple of meetings ago, we had responded that one of the items we're doing is working with New Brunswick. We're also working with the county, and we're also trying to divert flow that would come down that particular, into that area. We're diverting it to a different basin. We're trying what we can in order to alleviate the problem. This is not, storm surges are designed for a 25-year storm event. Every place you go, that's the design criteria. And, we're experiencing quite a number of, better than 25-year storm events. So we are trying to do what we can. I'm trying to do it as fast as I can, but it's not going to happen overnight. I'm sorry.
Do you have any idea, Mr. Goldstein, how long it's going to take? Because with the rain and the weather, if it gets worse, it does create a challenge for those residents in that area.
Yeah, we've been metering flows over on George's Road. That metering will end in about another 2 weeks, and then our consultant will give us a final report on whether or not we can do that. If we can do that, it's a matter of a week or two that we can divert that flow out of this basin.
Thank you.
Okay, my question is, where you said you're
Right,
working...
Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, my question is due to where you said you're working with North Brunswick over George's Road. Well, please explain to me if that's the cause why Remsen Avenue, Livingston Avenue, excuse me, all the other ones were skipped.
Right here?
No, I'm just still saying, where there's no problem with there, where that water passes through fine, where you fixed this about 4 years ago, but whoever fixed this, I don't know if it's the same worker who did all of them, which I mentioned to you, and believe me, when I find the right picture, I will show you where they did not, when they opened it up, it was so much garbage there, blockage, they did not remove it. I don't see no problem what are you working with North Brunswick for, due to where evidently the problem is right there on Joyce Comer Avenue. Like I said, Remsen Avenue, the stream flows good. Livingston Avenue, the stream flows good. Joyce Comer, very big backup. Jersey Avenue flows good. So I don't see what is the need of waiting for North Brunswick to fix this job if the damage is done right there.
Yeah, there are culverts under Livingston Avenue and in that general area. We're not working with North Brunswick on that. We're working on that with the county. The county owns and controls and maintains all the culverts over a particular size. So it's not in our jurisdiction. I've been working with the county. We've come out recently and we've cleaned that. The issue down at Charles Street, and the county is having plans prepared to remove and replace that culvert underneath Charles. They did the one under Joyce Gilmer. The one under Charles has pipes that run through it. We are about, we've appropriated money to remove those pipes, get it out of there, so that any debris doesn't get caught up and then end up coming out of the local catch basins in that area.
Mr. Goldstein, if you can, for the next council meeting, give us an update, we were able to do any update on this, just bring it to us at the next council meeting, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one more question, and I will be done. I'm not an engineer like you are, but due to one thing I was looking at, the difference between each locations of these streams compared to Joyce Comer Avenue, I realized the rest of the streams, how deeper they are. Is that possibly why the water can pass away quicker through there? Because when you come to Joyce Comer Avenue with the stream, how, like this is the top, and you only have so much room for the water to pass through. Is that possible, where you can even just make it deeper so the water can pass through easier?
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're talking about. Is it in the culvert under the road, or?
Yes. Well, like I said, I realize how the dirt and it's up higher towards where the pipe it goes through, compared compared to the rest of the streams where, okay, the pipe is up here and it's deeper down, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
What we'll do is, Mr. Review, this in a few weeks, while the next council meeting for Mr. Bowling to read us more or less what has been done, what is the plan, so if we could have an update of that, and maybe that would be addressing the concerns.
Okay, and that's what, yes, I will take pictures of each location to show you, due to where the water is down. At the time, I couldn't do it. I will take a picture of each location to show you the difference of what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishes to address the council?
Hi, my name's John Asprey. I live in Ward 5. There's a few different things that I wanted to touch on that other folks have spoken on that I feel have not been addressed. Now, my understanding, the Emergency Management Council is a state mandated council that each municipality needs to have. It sounds like the what was it called?
Sir, address it to me.
I apologize. Ms. Council President, what is the other thing that's not the Emergency Management Council that seems to be doing so well?
The emergency.
Office of Emergency Management.
Office of Emergency Management, great. So I guess my point is that this is a mandated thing that the state says that you have to have. You can't just ignore it. You can't just, it's as if you're a math teacher assigned problems 1, 3, and 5 and you decide to fill in answers 4, 6, and 7. That's not how it works. You have to have this thing. You don't seem to have it. It seems like there are steps being made, and that's great. But I guess it almost seems like it's being perpetuated as a fraud because there's names on the website, there's a meeting time as though it really does exist, but it doesn't actually exist. To me, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely absurd. The other thing I'd like to address is what appears to be the passing of the buck between the Board of Education, the council, and the police on the matter of who actually calls the shots on evacuating the school in case of a bomb threat. It seems like the council's position was that the police have nothing to do with it, it's the superintendent's position. Go to the school board, the superintendent says, oh, we made it in conjunction with the police, now we come here. Seems like the police say, well, it might have not been the superintendent, it might have been the principal. Doesn't seem like there's actually any sort of oversight or plan in these sort of emergencies. It seems like it would be something that would be good to have, an emergency management council look into. The other thing is that, I just heard about the case with this Officer Weiss, and a lot of the folks, there's some young folks here in the audience, they were, I was in the back row, I was appalled, they were appalled. It seems like you have a predator cop on the streets here in New Brunswick. And I don't understand how this can keep happening. I forgot, it's been a few months since I've been to a council meeting. I forgot how angry all of this injustice makes me. I do want to say, and yes, this is a little bit of a joke, but you should seriously consider using your Nixle to notify people about the predator cop that you have on the streets of New Brunswick. Because quite frankly, somebody should know. Somebody should be told about what's going on here. The last note I just want to say is that you've directed me and some of the other people to not face the audience. I understand that's procedure. Over the years I've been to city council meetings, I have a feeling that the reason why people address the audience is because nothing seems to get done when I'm facing this way. So maybe we're looking at the people of New Brunswick to do anything about any of these problems. I also just want to say that people referred to Mr. Pittman beating up on cops. I actually think that's somewhat in poor taste when the cops are often beating up on the people of the Brunswick. So thank you for your time.
Anybody else before we adjourn?
Good evening, Susan Kramer Mills, Executive Director of the Town Talk Community Development Corporation. And rather than add to some of the anger in the room, I'd like to thank you all for supporting our resolution of support for what we're trying to do at First Reformed Church in the Sanctuary Building. And if some of you are familiar with the project that we're looking to do, and I just wanted to give you some information so that you know what you've passed We're trying to build 10 units of permanent supportive housing for domestic violence victims, and we're working with Human Aware. So we're refurbishing. So we are repurposing, we're creating worship space, but also community space in this historic church. And I do have, I have brochures about it, which explain about what we're doing, and we want to thank you that you've supported us, because with the Sandy relief monies that are available to New Jersey, and especially to Middlesex County, it looks like our project will get done. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I turn this to? So, thank you.
Hi there. Once again, my name is Morris Siu, and I'm from the 5th Ward. Just once again a question there, just from not being that used to be city council meetings. Just a matter of curiosity, myself being a former parliamentarian, how are these meetings run? Because I'm starting to just note certain inconsistencies of individuals being allowed to directly respond afterwards, such as the officer there, and just creating a kind of back and forth dialogue, while others are silent shortly after their testimony. Certain individuals you keep reminding us to face forward, yet others are facing backwards and speaking to the audience, especially when they are replying to something that someone had said there. I suppose my question there is, do you follow Robert's Rules of Order? Is there some kind of, what is the structure through which the meetings are run? Because it seems to me like certain individuals are being given more privilege than others in these meetings.
There is, and if you know, I have tried to the best of my, because human nature tends to go back and forth. So you direct the questions to the president of the council, and the council addresses one from directors that would address the answer to the question. And sometimes when people are there, they tend to forget that you cannot talk to the person directly. Everything has to go to the president of the council. So if you witness that I did not do that with everybody, I apologize, but I tried as much as I can to make sure that everybody gets the fair chance, and they're looking. Every time I say, remember, it's me. Remember, sir, it's me. That's when Captain Sego was talking, that he was going to start Mr. Pigman. I said, excuse me, it's right here. We don't allow this type of conversation, because that is not conducive to something positive and for all of us to hear each other.
Thank you so much.
I apologize for that, that was me, so I take full credit for talking about it.
Thank you.
Mark Lyons off 380 George Street. My question to everyone on that side of the railing is, if somebody would raise their hand, how many on that side of the railing live at Joyce Kilmer and Railroad Avenue near the food town?
Does 8 blocks count?
Is the area flooded where you live with raw sewage?
No.
I believe that if that happened where any of you lived, this lady wouldn't have had it come the first time. It would have been taken. Nobody wants raw sewage on their line. Nobody wants raw sewage on their line.
Thank you. Just due to what he just made a good point where I have to mention, due to where actually I'm 8 blocks away from Joyce Kilmer Stream. But one thing, just because you don't see the water up top, it's still affecting people where it's coming back into their houses where, you didn't see any water Railroad Avenue, but wow, you wouldn't believe how much people were pumping out of water from their basement from the cause of this. So it's not just because you don't see the water, and like I said, if you come through and it rains where, you will see how much water people, mainly on Railroad Avenue, like I said, where you don't see the water, you will still see the difference of where it's still hurting other people going into their basements.
And I know the person who's directly affected by she is in the corner. So she's the one that gets that. Where I see you picture the house, so I know how difficult it is having that issue.
Well,
So
yes. If you would also like to, all of you would like to look at the picture and see my point.
Up to date plan an update on what that is going to be on there.
Believe me, if they will all know about this meeting, imagine how full this building would really be if so many people knew about this meeting. So yes, this is a serious matter, and I hope the city looks into it as soon as possible, due to where they're already saying we're up, 16 inches of rain already, and this is the beginning of hurricane season, where the water is above normal already. So please, I hope the city does look into doing something with this soon.
Thank you.
Say one more thing. Yeah, let me just say, I think a lot of stuff is being put into, as far as the Office of Emergency Management, the name and maybe some outdated information on the website, maybe even an outdated state statutes. But since 9/11, a lot of things have changed. And under the President's Order number 5, the National Incident Management System, which is what the city goes by, city's in good hands.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Second. Roll call?
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.